So Ray basically creates conceptual performances, convenes gatherings, documents, and writes on cultural theory, performance, and also queer culture. He has presented his work in many parts of the world. His writings on Southeast Asian performance, propaganda, and even visual culture have appeared in many journals and books, including Mediating Malaysia, Media Culture and Power in Malaysian Society, published by Routledge in 2010, Rigorous and Compassionate Listening, Dialogical Writing on Site-Specific Art, also published in 2010. Hidden Things, a work by Lim Sei Chuan, Contesting Performance, Imaging Sites of Research. Also, Histories, Practices, Interventions, a reader in Singapore Contemporary Art, that's recently published in 2016. Of course, part of his work also republished in Narrative Simulation Art, Volume 2. So basically, his video archives of Southeast Asian performance currently resides at Asia Art Archive, Hong Kong, and also at International Institutes for Society History in Amsterdam, Singapore Art Museum, National Gallery of Singapore, and also at Fukuoka Museum. Formerly, he was a professor of life art and performance studies at University of Arts Helsinki. Now he serves as the Star Foundation Professor of Research, supervising practice-led Ph.D. students in the Faculty of Creative Industries at Universiti Tunku Abdul Rahman, or Utah.
Okay, so I didn't want to get too thick at the beginning, but I kind of want to, the word artistic expression shows up a lot with performance, that it's a kind of expression, but if you take the word expression and you trace it back, it comes to a kind of squeezing out. To express something is to squeeze something out, and it's linked with extorting. You know, that you are actually extorting somebody. So I think it's a bit of a problematic term. So what I prefer is manifestation. That something is being manifested, something is coming into being, something is appearing, something is being presented and presenting itself, and it's linked with ontology or you know a theory or a philosophy of beingness and coming into being. But I think it's a oscillation between ontology and epistemology. Because performance, at one time you're thinking about how do we know what we know, epistemology, how do we know what we know, and on the other hand, how do we know we exist, right? And it goes back and forth between those two poles. And performance is very much about presence. It's about something happening, but we don't know exactly what it is. So and then you can tie it to a kind of forensics, you know, like in the court, and for me, what for me is the kind of the foundation of performance art, which to me is habeas corpus, and habeas corpus is you're probably all familiar with it, you know, because ISA was eliminated habeas corpus, and we all know how Mahathir, during the first Mahathir era, the use of ISA was very well. He used it a lot, and it's been used a lot in Singapore as well. So it was an inheritance from the British. So if habeas corpus is showing the body. Now that body may be discourse, that body may be knowledge, that body may be the body of another, like another species, the body of a plant, the body of something. Something is being presented and something is being shown and so that, or manifested in front of us. And that to me is the foundation of performance art. And because I kind of like to distill down to the foundation of something, and that to me, habeas corpus is the foundation. Now, habeas corpus we link with the human body, and that's the primary, and the political body. But it's not just that. I think it's the crossover between the legal system and daily life. We're all presenting habeas corpus now. We're all presenting ourselves. We're all presenting subjectivity. We're all presenting who we are right now in this room. So that's habeas corpus. Now there's just one more thing I want to tie to that, and that's Engin Eysen's notion of citizenship and an active citizenship. That people who are even illegal in a system, who are alien to that system, who are immigrants coming into a system, a social system or a country, for Engin Eysen, when you act as a citizen, you take the stand. And you fight for your own habeas corpus, in a way, your own presence in that system. That is citizenship. So you don't necessarily need the stamp of approval. You don't need the passport. You don't need the IC in order to be a citizen for Eysen. There are many people in this society who are illegal all the time, whose lives are illegal. Homosexuals are illegal in this society in their daily actions. And so they don't have some stamp of approval of the general society, but they are citizens. And it's the act of citizenship, the act of being homosexual, the act of being queer, the act of being an outsider or an immigrant or an illegal alien, as it's used in the United States. That act is an act of citizenship for Eysen. So it's a very useful notion. Okay, and it brings it down to the act, to what's happening right now. All right, now this is forgetting the name. Sorry? Mystical reality, thank you. And it was Suleiman Esa and Reza Piedasa. Serena has written quite a bit about this. But what to me is interesting or links with performance art in this is, first of all, I think Piedasa really was very interested in the notion of the event. And that comes from a philosopher of the early 20th century named Whitehead, Alfred North Whitehead. And the notion of the event is that something is happening here, and all of us are creating it. And the camera is creating it, and the video camera is creating it, and the sound system is creating it. It's a complexity that's happening here. And it is not exactly a performance, but it's what you might call an event. It's a particular moment in time where something is manifesting. And I think I want to start with that notion. But there was something another small event that happened within the event of mystical reality, and that was the peeing. And I'm forgetting his name. Yeah, Salih Ben Jonid. Thank you. So Salih Ben Jonid read the manifesto, and I think he considered it to be without humor. And the lack of humor, the lack of a kind of distance that humor brings to something, the lack of seeing oneself as absurd, was something that he wanted to introduce into that event. And so he peed, and there's difference of opinion. Did he pee in the space, or did he pee actually on the manifesto? Let's say he peed on the manifesto, because that seems to be how he presented it. And that act of peeing was, in my view, one of the first performance art works in Malaysia. And it was an intervention into that exhibition, but it was the kind of intervention which was not at first meant to be a work of art. And this is something, performance art is marginal to the art field. It holds itself, sometimes quite proudly and arrogantly, as marginal to art. But in this case, I think it works, that sometimes you have acts which are not meant to be art, which become art in the kind of way that they fit into the societal framework or the political framework. That act of peeing, and your description of it is really quite nice, where you suggest that it actually certified the art of the event. And I think that that's a really nice paradox that you saw in it. Here's another one, which I think is very similar in some ways. And this is Ramat Harun, who in the previous election to the last one, or several elections, it was 1999. That election, he cut his ponytail, which he had, and then began growing his dreadlocks, and he vowed not to cut his dreadlocks until there was democracy in Malaysia. So with the last election, on May 9th, I believe, he redid the performance as a shaving of the dreadlocks, the cutting of the dreadlocks, and then they were placed on a kind of a plate, and I see them as a kind of castration performance. You know, the cutting of the previous power regime in Malaysia, the cutting of autocratic society, of the non-Bersih society and election system, and the shift into a new possibility, whatever that possibility, and whether that possibility becomes a democracy or not. But he saw that as a significant moment. So that's a performance that's not a performance. He was simply, every time you saw him, his dreadlocks were a little longer until they got down to the floor. And so that act over a long period of time, to me, is another aspect of performance art. Okay, here's one of the first work that I did in Malaysia when I arrived in Malaysia in 1988. So this was 88, 89. I'll just read it. For an indefinite period of time, I will exchange religious beliefs with another person. I will practice yours while you practice mine at the level of commitment previously demonstrated by each person to his or her original faith. Should you wish to embark on this exchange, we will arrange a mutually satisfactory time and method for the complete transference of our respective beliefs. It's completely absurd. You can't transfer beliefs like that. But absurdity is an important part of performance. The impossibility of this, that you can just change your religious beliefs with another person, that absurdity then becomes part of the impossibility of an act. But the positing of an impossible act, to me, is also performance, the absence of that. Okay. Okay, so I'm just gonna play this because it's to set up. Should I play this or do this? Okay. Yeah. Okay, because I'm not really getting to that issue that you were talking about. But anyway, this is Lee Weng Choi talking about performance art in Asia, and it's a very quick thing. It was part of a performance that I did in Singapore and Thailand and in the U.S. Okay, so never mind, we won't do that. Okay, these are ritual processes which were done at USM when I first arrived, and I was teaching Seni Archa, and I asked the students to trap a spirit, and no one knows how to trap a spirit, and that's why I asked them to do it. Because when you don't think that you're making art, then it's much easier to make art, because you don't focus on that, I'm making a work of art, which tends to freeze people up. So I thought, okay, dealing with time and space and mysterious dimensions of reality and other dimensions of reality might be a place to start teaching sculpture. So it required installations, it required acts and performances. So some of those acts came out of Malay horror movies, and some of them came out of Chinese horror movies and Indian horror movies, and others came out of what the students remembered of their own past and the rituals that they carry out on a daily basis, so it was a kind of introduction into the act, if not into performance art or performance per se. This is another work which deals with ritual and is based on ritual by Lu Kung Yu, and it was one which he did in his school, MIA, and also did at Theatre Works in Singapore. And it was about his anger about what he saw as the misuse of the prayer altars and the plaques, which he noticed were being thrown in the side of the road every year. And so he collected those and then brought them into the gallery and added a video component to a ritual which was constructed there. So it was a kind of invented ritual. I think there's, okay, I'll do this one and this is fairly short. Okay. For some reason, I think it's trying to go through this cable, but it's not getting there somehow. This was an event that I choreographed and organized in Penang at USM, and I had invited the police to actually terminate the event. And then I talked to Votantu is Vote Hantu, and it was on the eve of the election. And I decided to create an act of censorship as a performance, as a constructed performance in front of the audience, and to see how that would play out. And Sugu Kingham, that's Wong Hui Chong, who's taking a Hantu posture from the Mahamari, based on Mahamari sculptures. This is Sugu Kingham, who was presenting a speech as if by Mahathir to the audience, and based on a speech of Mahathir's, and then Tan Sui Bang with her traditional orchestra in the background, playing, but then stopping, playing, and then stopping. So everything was disturbing. Everything was overlaid. Everything else. It was a completely chaotic situation. And then the audience themselves, when the police came in, began to sing "We Shall Overcome" as they were ushered out of the space. So it had ritual elements, but it had a farce on top of that. It had a complete a dishonest and manipulative framework on top of that. So that complexity to me is also part of performance. That using of different performance mechanisms, the political speech, the orchestra, the music, the postures, the dance postures, the monologue, the interference of the police, all of it is a performance, and became congealed into the event that took place there. Okay.
All right, thank you, Ray. Thank you for a blast from the past. Okay.